Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new thing for me. I need to write. I'm very bad at writing, and so I was like, I will rope some friends into writing with me on a live stream. If I live stream and y'all are here, I have to write. So there's going to be some chatting because it's me. I am very happy to have some people with me. Camille is our accountability person to make sure that Lizelle and I write because yeah, writing.
Yeah.
I basically just introduced you, but introduce yourselves and plug your channel, and then we're all going to talk about what we're writing, what we're working on, and then maybe we'll write. We'll see. We're going to write. Yes.
Camille. Oh, me?
I'm chaos. This is live stream writing chaos.
Hi, I'm Lizelle Samber. I have a channel of the same name. My debut, Blood Like Magic, no, wrong way. There it goes. Comes out June 15th of this year. And it's about a family of Black witches living in a near future Toronto. And the girl who is faced with the impossible task of killing her first love or losing her family's magic forever. And I'm working on the sequel. So, infinite suffering. And yeah.
I haven't
so
written
much
a
anguish.
sequel, but I don't want to. So, because they sound hard.
It's not bad where I am now because I've finally gotten into the headspace and enough of the story that it's got its own pieces and it feels distinct from the first one. Like it's got its own stuff. There are characters that I love more in this book, and there's new characters, and I am adding in some very interesting twists that I'm very happy about. So it's finally separated itself. But in the beginning, I was just like, this is never going to be as good as the first one. I don't even know if the first one is good because no one's read it.
Oh my gosh, what a struggle. That's good to hear, though. I've never heard anything but horror stories about sequels. But that's so positive. That's good to hear.
Yeah, it's I'm mostly pretty good. I feel like it's a lot of sadness in the beginning that for me has upticked. Maybe not for everyone, but there's hope.
All right, Camille.
Hey guys, well, I am Camille Myrick. I'm an author tuber and published author. I'm currently working on the revised draft of Project Run, which I'm trying to get query ready in a couple months here. So that's what I'm going to be working on today, annotation and stuff like that. And I have a self-published project called Paper Daisies. It was an artsy little thing that I was like, let's try it. And I'm also in a short fiction anthology called A Flash of Words. If you want to pick that up, all the links for that are over on my channel if you want to give it a look. And that's all about me for now. Yeah.
And I did put links to both in the description. Sometimes I remember, sometimes I don't. I remember this time. Yeah. And I have to ask about your Christmas tree still being
What
up.
about it? Oh, it's never coming down.
It's never coming down.
My mom got me a typewriter ornament. There's also a Starbucks ornament on it. And I'm like, my backgrounds, you can't really tell, but my tapestry is evergreen trees with a big moon. So it's an evergreen tree with fairy lights on it. Yeah.
All right. So it's not a Christmas tree.
It's not a Christmas tree. It's an office tree.
I love it. Okay. All right. We're not going to sprint just yet because there's only been a few minutes, but I'm getting ready. I'm doing it. It's fine. We're fine.
I'm counting down.
Right. Oh, I should say what I'm working on. Right. It's me. Hi, this is my channel. I'm writing another YA thriller. I started it. What is time? I started it in 2019. I wrote more of it in 2020 and then took a really long break. And I'm back to it because I have to write the messy middle because I know if I don't, I never will. And so I am currently in that hell. It's interesting. And it's called I've mentioned it on a couple streams and in places. It's my murder turducken. There's a murder within a murder within a murder in it. It's a lot. Why do I do this to myself? Because it's small town secrets and there's past and present. So meaning there's a murder in the past and a murder now. And it's a lot of murder. Super fun. Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah.
That's the thing about writing. You talk about all the things that are painful, and then people are like, why do you do that? And you're like, oh, it's fun.
Torture. But no, I still enjoy it. Like, at least the hard days make the good days worth it. And you just oscillate wildly. So like yesterday was not a fun writing day for me. I have no clue what I'm doing. Today's going to be super fun maybe. But earlier in the week, I wrote like I was on fire and I was flying and I figured out a problem. That was amazing. Like you got to you earn the good days. So
yeah.
It's worth it.
That's true.
I assume you're not gaming right now then because you're so busy. No,
I'm not even working on puzzles, which that's my new grandma hobby, which
I love that.
Part of my next video, my next vlog is going to talk about puzzles, but it's on hold right now because it's like all of my like mental energy is focused on writing because I'm trying to write every single day. I'm back on my planner with my stars. Like I took one day off this week and I vaguely regretted it. I got back on the horse, but I did that thing. I'm sure you guys do that thing too. So I took Thursday off because I had past pages to finish. And then Friday I was like, it's Friday. I don't want to write. And I had to I made myself though. It was like 10 p.m. I was like, no, you cannot have a 2-day break. Not allowed. And I did it and I made it and it's okay. But like we all get there. It's like you take one day off and it's like, I'm fine. I could skip another day.
Maybe I won't do this anymore, ever.
Yeah, who wrote this book? No
So
one.
it's amazing to me that at 10 o'clock you like did it because my threshold is like if at 5 o'clock I have done nothing, it's not a thing. It's not gonna happen. I have to force myself so early on. And then there's days where there's live streams at night and I get so excited because I'm like, yes, I'm gonna do nothing all day. Like Thursday, I just read like my AMM submissions and I read Concrete Rose and it was awesome because I was like, I don't have to do anything. I can procrastinate all the way until 7:30.
That is nice. But do you find is that since you became a full-time writer or were you always an earlier in the day writer?
Oh, when I was working full-time, I woke up at 5:30 and I wrote in the morning and then I would go to work because trying to write when I'd come home from work and was tired, like I couldn't do it. And then like I was in Toronto, so I worked in downtown Toronto. I worked at a marketing place. It was like, if you know Toronto, it was like King Street. It's like very like startup, that sort of thing. And so after I finished work, I'd want to like go hang out with my friends downtown and like go shopping or go do this and that. And like if I had writing to do, I couldn't go anywhere and it was painful. So I was like, I'll wake up super early in the morning because then if I want to do something after work, it's like whatever. I don't have to stress about it. I could just go and do stuff. But now all bets are off.
Because you're full time. Yeah.
I procrastinate.
Just can't relate because I cannot get up early. It is not possible.
5 o'clock is my magic hour.
Well, you have kids, which I feel like being a parent makes more of a morning.
Don't do that. I have one, not plural.
One. but like every parent I know in my personal life is like to me, you're gonna become a morning person. I'm like, am I ever? Even if
I just made my kid a night person because I was like, I must sleep in.
I'll be that one like, you don't have to go to bed. Whatever, sleep in.
I'm like, yeah, just sleep in the morning. But if I want to get anything done, I have to keep him up to where he'll sleep in, and then I have to get up early. And then that morning, because if I wake up and go straight into mom mode, I'm just harried all day. But if I like wake up and have an hour, preferably 2, to kind of like acclimate and sort out what I'm going to do, then I'm like super organized, super productive all day. But I hate waking up early, but I love working in the morning. It's a paradox.
Yeah. Okay. Once you're up, I mean, it's okay. It's the get your body out of bed a bit. That is the part I find.
Every writing retreat I've gone on, which is only 3, but morning writing time was nice. And like I felt socially pressured to not 5 a.m. get up, but like get up at a reasonable hour. And I will admit, those morning writing sessions were lovely. I just won't do that. And so like for me, the reason I can do 10 p.m. is I've trained myself to do that, in fairness. And also when I was writing fan fiction, I'd write fic till 3 a.m. So I guess I've always been a night writer. But for novels specifically, you're right about the work thing, but I've trained myself basically like 7 to 10 is my recharge time, and then I force myself into a second wind, and that's why I write between 10 and midnight. And so I am capable of forcing that to happen.
Right.
So like Friday night, I literally was like, you're gonna go into the kitchen. Did I make a cocktail? Did I get a glass of wine? I can't remember. Or I had hot chocolate, something like that. But I did the dishes. I was like, you're gonna do the dishes and think about your book while you do the dishes. And the dishes are my new shower. And you can just tell what a bad adult I was before the pandemic. I almost never did dishes because I did everything in my power to eat as much takeout as possible so that I wouldn't create dishes.
Paper plates, darling.
Oh, it wasn't even that. It would just be like,
throw it in the garbage,
and it comes in a container. It was great. But in the pandemic, I have to prep all my meals here, and I cook for myself, so I have to do dishes almost every day. And now it's the same like effect of a shower because I'm focusing on something that I'm not actually focusing on, and I've had some brainwaves for my book while doing the dishes. I'm that person now, but it worked. I was able to write Friday night, so
that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's a problem. I think I've always preferred to write at night, but then when you have a baby, it's almost like you're really playing with the devil there because you're like, if I sit down, I get into it, and I start at 11, it's going to be 4 o'clock in the morning before I'm done. And then I'm like, oh crap, I got to be up in 2 hours. So then I'm like, let's just stay up. Let's make some coffee. And like that initially when I first had the baby, like those first few months, I would just go days, never sleep.
Really bad. Don't do that.
It was awful. I know. I have to take better care of myself mindfully. So we're a year and a half into it now. We've got a rhythm.
Now you can write an insomnia thriller.
Yay!
I could never. At 11 p.m., my brain breaks, and it's like goodbye, and then I leave it and I do other things, and that's why I had to force myself to write in the morning. But not for everyone.
Are you ready for a sprint, Alexa?
Oh no, I guess I am.
I also was like, oh, already?
No, it's
We're
good.
edging up on 15 minutes.
We're gonna write because we got people tuned in and they expected productivity sprints. So we have to do.
Let us be productive.
I know. Oh no, guys, we're really gonna do this. Okay, so I decided before this started, we're starting off slow, starting with a 15-minute sprint. And then we're going to work our way up to 20 and like see if we go past that. Because we all already conferred we're all slower starters. Like longer sprints work for all of us. Like we all know that person who can write 1,000 words in 10 minutes and we hate them. So I'm kidding. We love them, but we also hate them. It's fine. Slow writers unite. Okay, let's do it. And someone just asked if this will be posted after. Yes, I archive all my live streams. So yeah, okay, let's do it. Stretching, screen sharing.
I have to figure out what I'm doing now.
Okay, hold on. Actually, the last time I hit this, it gave me the option to pick a tab. Is it still going to do that? It says like...
It should. Like when you click share screen and then
there it is. I was like, I don't want you to see my whole screen because there are AMM secrets. I mean, not literally, but like the inboxes are also here.
Yeah.
And we don't. Okay. Everyone see that? Yeah?
Yes.
Yay. Okay. Everyone ready?
Mm-hmm.
Let's do it. Oh no. Go. Right. We did it.
It's true.
How did we do?
Good. I got through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages of my chapter.
Nice.
At the end of the
Huh. I wrote like 200 words. I don't know if they're any good, but they exist.
Words are words.
Words are words.
Editing over here.
Ooh,
I'm like
good words in the
maybe
chat.
halfway through chapter.
Nice. We got 335, 383, 428, 227, 181, 375. Y'all are going 500 exactly. I did write 2 extra words right at the end just to get 200 myself. Got some folks reading. We love it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, my words always need editing. Don't worry. Handwritten words, 175. Wow. Y'all are impressive.
Getting stuff done.
Okay, we're just head cracking. Oh, there's so many people writing. This is so cool. I can't even like show y'all because you're all doing so much. I love it. Got a lot of people hovering like in the 400s, almost 500 words. This happens to me all the time where like the sprinting noise goes off when I watch Laura and Kevin's. And because on theirs, the ding-a-ling is really loud. And I'll just be like, what? What?
Ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling.
It's really loud.
Oh my gosh.
It's so good though.
I don't usually get
so sarcastic.
bad habit of like looking and being like, how much more time? How much more time? But it's because I'm editing. If I was drafting, I'd be properly in the zone. But because I'm editing, I'm like, okay, yeah.
I personally, myself, made an intentions list for this live stream. It was like, what exactly with each sprint do I want to get done?
Oh, wow. That's a good tip. That might really help some people. Oh,
yes.
I just realized you probably can't hear me because I forgot to move my mic back in front of my face. So, yeah. Good job, those of you who are like, I can kind of hear her. It's fine. It's because I have to move it to type.
I could hear you, but I can hear you better now.
Well, that speaks to the power of the mic. It's not a bad mic. Okay. So I'm not ready to go right back into a sprint because I'm not that disciplined. So like, what should we talk about? Is there anyone in the chat who like wants to like throw us subjects? I don't think there's anything like going on right now that's worth ruminating on. Although people keep asking me about the whole Big Four thing, but my response honestly is just a giant shrug emoji. And Lizelle, I know you're impacted in your own way, but you're like,
I'm also giant shrug emoji.
Yeah,
I have no say so.
Yeah.
Either way, my book is still happening. So
yeah. Well, and Simon Schuster isn't going to change. It's going to remain a separate entity by all accounts. That's what everyone's saying. There's less. Big Four is like hilarious. Like pour one out for the Big Five, but
I want to know what the name is. What do you call it? Do you call it something random house Simon and Schuster?
Oh God, can you imagine? RHSS?
All of it is horrible. Or do you just call it? I thought it would be cool to just call it the Penguin, villain style.
Penguin. Or you could call it Random Simon.
You could do that.
Random Simon Penguin.
Random Simon Penguin.
Or, I mean, I don't think they're actually going to do this, but it's like, do we start referring to it as Bertelsmann? Because they're the owner.
Bertelsmann.
Are Germans. Germans own a majority of publishing houses. I think there's another one owned by Germans, but that like Penguin Random House is Germans. And I think Machette is French, I think. At least the name is French. I don't know if they're still French owned. But...
Is it Schuster or Schuster?
I say Schuster, but that doesn't mean I'm right.
I don't know. I always say Schuster. I don't know.
Yeah, I pronounced McElderry wrong for a very long time.
Everyone does. I had this conversation with like 4 separate authors because when Simon Pulse dissolved, a bunch of us got shifted to McElderry, and I had conversations with several authors that were shifted, and I was like, "How do you say it?" And they were like, "I don't know either." They were like, "I just keep saying Simon and Schuster and hoping no one notices."
to this day, because previously I was with HMH, and I'll say that because it's safer. I don't know if it's Houghton or Houghton, and I literally worked there for almost a year. Like
Houghton Mifflin,
Houghton. I worked. That was my second job. No, my first job. So my first job out of college, I worked for my college, so I feel like it doesn't count. So my first real job out of college, I worked for Houghton Mifflin, and I say Houghton Mifflin, and I have no clue if that's correct. None. And they literally paid me a salary.
I knew there was a Mifflin in there, but I was like, did I just confuse Dunder Mifflin with
honestly,
publishing house?
Every time I think about Houghton Mifflin, I think of Dunder Mifflin. So, yeah. And then they merged with Harcourt, which is actually how I lost my job. They moved my entire department to Florida, and I was not going to move to Florida. That was part of the Harcourt merger because Harcourt was based in Orlando.
Don't go to Florida.
So they consolidated. Publishing, that was on it was I guess the corporate side, but I didn't really touch trade publishing at that job. Publishing, yay! So I still don't know how to say the name of my previous publisher. Basically, I'm guessing.
I wish I could say it more. I had to do so much Googling to figure out McElderry. So much Googling, and I'm like, couldn't have just throw someone, have one YouTube video where you say the name. And for the longest time, I was just calling it Cassie Clare's imprint. The Cassie Clare imprint.
The Cassie Clare place. Okay, we have some questions in chat, which I love. So this is a good one, relevant to word sprinting. How long does it usually take to finish your first draft?
Camille! It's another Camille.
I'm trying to think. For me, it depends on how long the draft is. I average 20,000 words a month when I'm actively drafting. So the Ivies took me 3 to 4 months. I finished in between the 3 and 4 month mark, but that was a 70K draft. This book is going to be 90 to 100,000 words. It's going to take longer, but I have gaps between, so I don't know if that counts. Brightly Burning was 3.5 months, and that was a 100,000 word draft. I just wrote faster. So I'm in a 3 to 6 month sweet spot, essentially, personally.
Yeah, I was calculating because I was like, it's 45 to 50 days is how much it takes me, unless I'm doing nano, in which case 30. Well, usually closer to 25 because I get ridiculous at some point. If I complete nano, which I only do every other year.
I feel that.
Last year failed. Year before did it. Year before that failed. Year before that did it.
I've only done it once. Probably never going to do it again. For me, though, it's timing. November has been bad for me since 2015, which was the 1 year I did it. And since then, every November, it's either been I've been on submission, I've been editing with an editor. I'm just never writing, pure drafting during November, personally.
Right.
So
I've only won 1 year. It was 2018. And my draft was only half done, which was devastating. And I was like, wait a second. 50,000 is not enough for an adult thriller. It's just not enough.
It's not how I wrote Brightly Burning in 3 months, because exactly, I hit nano and I couldn't stop. I was like, I'm only in the middle.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that disenfranchised me a little bit because I went in and was like, my novel's going to be done. And then it was like, it's not done. And then I didn't pick it up again for a year and was like, and then I finished it in 3 weeks. And for me, I try to write 10,000 words a week, but I can only do that 3 weeks in a row. And then for 2 weeks, I kind of crash, and then I'm back up to 10,000 words a week. So for me, it's the same. It's about 4 months, 4 to 6 months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But like we were talking about earlier, I never finish the draft before I go into my first round of edits. Like I always leave it undone at the end and then go revise it. Anyway.
I've done that with every book. We'll see what I do on this one. Because I've actually planned the ending for once, so I don't know what's going to happen. Like, because I had to write a synopsis for it in order to send it to my publisher for consideration. So that's in process. But it meant I had to like actually come up with an ending. I was like, because I was like, I don't think I can get away with a partial synopsis. That would look unprofessional. I did it, guys. I plotted a whole book. It's not detailed, and that's the key. I cannot outline in detail, which is why I'm in pain right now at writing Act 2. But it's a me problem. It's fine. Yeah.
Oh, Act 2 sucks so bad.
It really does. It's the worst. I hate it. But like, when you nail it, it makes or breaks the book.
Yeah.
But I never nail it until revisions, personally. Like, but that kind of takes the pressure off. Like, so the stuff I just wrote, it might be awful. I really don't know. I will probably rewrite this chapter after this book is done. It's like a bridge chapter, and like there's a beat I know has to happen. I don't know what it is. I mean, I know what the beat is, but I don't know what the thing is to get to the next scene. And so I'm writing bullshit. It's great. Highly recommend. Well, it's kind of comforting knowing how much Act 2s get better in revision. They just do. Mine always do. So
yeah, I think the whole book, just like the only things that usually stay like basically the same for me are like the very beginning and the very end, because I usually know both of those before I've plotted or put anything to paper / computer, because I don't handwrite anything because I hate paper.
I really discovered. Sorry.
No, you're good. Go.
I really discovered my love for revision process and like how fantastic it like really can be. This past year, when I had a short story that I was like on deadline to submit, and it had a word maximum, and that was like, okay, I have 6,000 words. We have to get it down to 4,000. How do we do that? And I think I did a vlog on it where I did like 4 drafts in a day. And it was like the revision was so fun. And I was like, oh my God. Like, it was the only time that I've really truly felt like I knew exactly what I was doing. And so that's why I was like, no qualms about it. We're going straight into revision with the book. Like, I'm as much of the drafting as I want to do. So yes, give revision a chance, people. You'll love it. It makes it best.
It's not my favorite part, but I know that it is very necessary.
Loving it has helped me. Like, it definitely it does, but it makes drafting harder. So there's a trade-off. Though it's like a treat. I'm like, oh, I get to revise it. Oh my gosh. We have some good questions in chat. We'll run through like a couple more, and then we'll sprint again, because I'm going to sprint again. We're going to do 20 minutes. It's
I'm
real.
keeping my eye on the clock.
I know. Like, we're writing. Okay, some of these are juicy. Well, I'm going to throw this up because tips for submitting horror novels to agents. And I know that, yeah, like this is an interesting topic for me. Because I have feelings, and I feel like y'all might have feelings too. Because we've talked privately, like with Laura, like horror has been a topic in our group chats for sure, and it's come up in AMM as well. So I will not go first. But I have feelings, and will come back to me. Anyone have tips?
I have a weird perspective, even though I'm not officially in querying yet. Really pay attention when you're querying agents. A lot of agents specify that they don't like gore, that they're like, I love horror, but I really don't want gore, or I really don't want something that's like disturbing child content or something like that. And so people can be really sensitive with subject matter. And not as many agents that I saw like making my list represent horror. And when they do, they're usually kind of very specific about it. So there's usually going to be an agent out there that kind of like fits your project perfectly. You got to find that one. And like some people, but you do have to be careful about how you write your gore. Because I'm a gore horror person. I personally enjoy like body horror and stuff like that. But
no, that's really hard to find. I have a mentee that I'm working with who has horror with some gore, and it was really, and I'll share some of her list with you because it was really hard finding people to sub to, because like it's just a hard stop for a lot of agents. Exactly. Like when it gets really dark, they're like, I'm out.
Right. And you can look at books that you like books that have come out recently. For instance, like Nick Cutter's The Troop, super gory. Whoever his agent is, I need to go put them on my list because that book was disgusting, but fabulous. Like, fabulously disgusting.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts?
Checking like what sort of books they're looking for, because like at least like in trends that I've seen of horror coming out, there are two, like to me, like very distinct types of horror. There's like the horror that's like the gore, and that to me like whiffs more of like the horror genre in like a movie and like a multimedia, like that sort of horror. And then there's the horror that I see a lot in like a lot of the young adult horror books that are coming out, which is a lot more of like a cerebral, like you could even call it contemporary fantasy in a lot of cases. It's more like a very light horror. Like the horror is more on the tone. I think it's a lot more like gothic than like necessarily pure horror. And I think seeing what sorts of books that agent has said they're interested in can help you get like a good gauge on that. Like if they're saying Clown in a Cornfield, like you can go bloody, like awesome. But if they're like saying like Nina LaCour's Watch Over Me, that's a very different sort of book. And I love both. I think both are amazing, but they're two very different types. And I think, checking on that.
Sometimes the writing's just unsettling. Like sometimes you can just write something in such a way that it's disturbing because of your word choice, and you can slip gore in there, and not the outright kind of way, but in it just gives you the flash of an image of something kind of gross or like unsettling, and it kind of alludes to. And I think that's really fun. I kind of want to query my book out to some agents that are like, I don't like gore. And I'm like, well, this isn't exactly gore, but it will give you the heebie-jeebies. We'll make you like dry heave just a little bit. Just
and sometimes you gotta kind of read into it. I feel like out there must be an agent that was like, I don't like gore. Oh, but I loved Mexican Gothic. And it's like,
right.
A man you grew up basically in her mouth, and that was
well, and that's the thing. Like my tip is on the thriller suspense side, which is why he's actually really horrible about labeling things horror. And I know that horror isn't just YA, there's adult as well. Well, adult's a more friendly market for horror, so that's good news if you've got an adult. But if you have YA, this is just a problem, period. And it was actually a friend of mine who writes horror who said this to me, and I was like, you know, you're right. She said, it doesn't matter if your book isn't a thriller. YA is going to call it a thriller. It is like a catch-all marketing term for there might be suspense in this. It might be scary. But like it's such a wide net, which makes it hard for everyone, because it's like it could be like contemporary with light suspense aspects, it could be a fast-paced like pure thriller, or it could be a horror novel, but they will market all of them as thrillers. Very confusing for everyone. But meaning read and know your comps, and then really pay attention to what the agents say, because exactly they might say like I haven't read Mexican Gothic yet, but they'll say that and you'll be like, so I know what you like, but I also know what you're saying you don't want. I would go more on the books they say they love, as long as you feel that you can comp in that arena, and then be super smart about your comps. Because say it's a horror if it's a horror, but if you straddle any kind of line, you might actually do better in queries not calling it a horror, but comping horror books.
Oh yeah, I would never call this book a horror.
Yeah. So that's my thought. from helping my mentee, who definitely wrote a horror, but we called it a YA queer suspense. We did. But it is a horror. But then the comps were horror. We comped Midsommar because that should give you a hit of where it's going.
Yeah.
So,
which is why, correct me if I'm wrong, but sorry, go ahead, Lizelle.
Oh no, I was saying that's why I like having the perspectives, because I haven't queried in a bit, and with my agent, at this point, she's like, I like your voice. So I threw her my book and I was like, hey, here's a horror. Let me know if you might like this. And meanwhile, there's maggots and all sorts of stuff. No. I was like, I did not ask, do you like body horror? I did not ask, did you like this? I was just like, here you go. And she was like, amazing, amazing, amazing. I love this. And I was like, oh, okay, perfect, wonderful. So I'm like, there's a distance, because if I was querying this, maybe I would have done it different. If I was querying my horror, maybe I wouldn't have called it a horror, or maybe I would have, depending. I might have queried some agents and called it a horror. I might have queried other agents and called it a contemporary fantasy.
That's another strategy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tailor your queries. So, yeah.
In Query Tracker, I don't even think that you can specifically search for horror. It's under thriller. Oh. So when I was making my first, second, third priority list, it was agents who do like horror but are in thrillers, but they like horrors. I was like, okay, first priority, because they'll definitely like what I've done with a little bit of the gore in the book, and I'm like, they'll have an appetite for it better than maybe some of these other people are more into the straightforward murder, cop, investigative thriller stuff, Yeah.
AMM's so fascinating because, and I found this with my first page critiques as well, people will label a lot of things thrillers that are not thrillers. And I know why. It's not their fault. It's because book marketing is confusing. But I have a very specific definition for a thriller, and book marketing doesn't always agree with me. Because I'm always going to expect a pure thriller. You can surprise me with horror, maybe, but I still might be like, wow, that's bodies. Oh, okay. All right. I guess
there's expectations for different things. And that's why, and this is why I think I hated Home Before Dark by Riley Sager, because when I was looking for it, it said it was a horror, and I read it, I was like,
it's a commercial thriller.
But it's a thriller, and it's just because I went in horror.
It's so gothic, basically. Yeah.
And then they went
gothic
there.
Suspense is actually what I might even call it, because I had a creeping sense with that book, but it wasn't as fast-paced as some of his other thrillers.
No.
So
I felt the same way about In a Dark, Dark Wood by Ruth Ware. It was marketed as such this incredible thriller and whatever, and I read it and I was like, this has got a lot of family drama, relationship drama. It's all relationship drama. Really.
It's a domestic suspense. For sure, which is the whole, I just adore that subcategory. I'm like, all these messy people.
Messy people. Yeah, messy people are the best.
You were with who? And then what happened? Drama. Well, because that one especially just scratches the itch for me of college drama.
Right. That's all the Leanne Moriarty books. That's why I ate so much up, because I was like, oh my God, all your domestic drama.
Okay, we have more good questions, but I'm a good girl and we're gonna sprint. So we are so I will say to the people in the chat, there's some really good questions that I want to catch up on the chat. So if your questions disappear, I will ask you to ask them again. But okay, we're gonna sprint. I said it, so it has to happen. All right.
Yes, it's happening.
Deep breaths. I'm doing the thing. Okay. It's probably going to show an ad. Yeah, now you know what ads are targeted to me. 1 second.
Skincare!
That's why I pay for premium. So the other day I got accidentally shown an ad and I was livid.
Yeah. Paula's Choice stocks me. I'm already a customer. Save your money. So sprint. We're doing it. It's already running. Sorry. Go! Okay. Welcome back. How did everyone do?
I'm almost done annotating this chapter. Good.
Lizelle, how about you?
I finished editing that chapter, which was good because I didn't have to do that much. I just had to add in a character that wasn't there before, and he had to be in the whole scene where he was previously not there. This is the biggest bunch of my edits. I had a character who was flat, and so I've had to pepper him into way more scenes and make him way more prevalent so that it makes sense that he's there and people aren't like, why is this person here? Which was basically my notes. So
whatever works.
Yeah, you either go 2 ways on it. Either you cut them or you put them in more. So
I did abysmally. I put 125 words. I'm unsure of all of them, but it's honestly because there was drama in the chat. And so, hey, y'all, be kind and lovely speaking with each other in chat. We will do the best we can to get to everyone's questions. But when we are actively talking, I'm not actively paying attention to the chat, so I do miss things. Lainey is now here to help with modding because Camille, you're my other mod.
I know the one time I'm not looking, I'm actually working this time.
I need to empower more people with mod powers. But yeah, just when we express our strong opinions, be kind. Don't name call. Don't be rude to anyone because we're all here at the same time just trying to chill with each other and talk about writing and support each other and do some sprints. We are going to do another sprint because I want to make up for that abysmal one I just did. I got to figure out what these kids are doing. I don't know if they're bantering. I don't know if they're flirting. I don't know if that's appropriate. Someone's dead. They really should I gotta move the scene along. I don't know what I'm doing, but it's okay. I wrote some flirty banter that's probably very inappropriate. So
kind of Stand By Me, where they're like, we're going to see a dead body. Maybe it shouldn't be a party.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm feeling it out. This book does have a love triangle, so they're allowed to flirt. I just don't know if it's dragging the scene, but who cares? It's just slogging through mud. You gotta do it to get to the other side of the river. I don't know.
Yeah.
So let's do some chatty things. The chat's way moved on. But I remember someone earlier asked what do we think the next trends are, which is always a really interesting question. Lizelle, you made a whole video on it.
Sure.
Yeah, maybe we can do a little speculation because another one of the questions that's also just kind of zipped on by, but I remember it. Someone was asking if you're writing in a dead genre, is it worth submitting to smaller publishers? And so it's always an interesting question about what is dead or harder to sell, how the market's going. And I will say the person who asked then said vampires, and I think vampires are about to come back in a big way. But
they're already back.
They're already some projects have sold. I think there's room for more. I don't see the boom being as big as it was before because you can't really recapture that magic. But what I find really interesting about it, and this, Lizelle, because witches, what's so exciting and urban fantasy is so exciting right now is we are seeing a slight resurgence of paranormal urban fantasy, but it's being done in a very now way, and the key is being fresh with how you are approaching it. YA is opening back up again, but the way that you write it has to slot into current YA writing and voice trends. So it's always, I think, worth querying, at least trying with something that's dead, that goes in quotes, to kind of see if the market's responsive. Someone also asked about dystopian. Put a pin in that. We'll come back to it. I will stop talking so you guys can maybe opine. What do you think is on the horizon?
I always feel the dead genre thing is it becomes a harder sell, but it doesn't become impossible if you're doing something different. And I think that's the hard part of when there are these booms. I just find a lot of the booms in the past, the boom was you can write basically the same thing that someone else is writing and it's cool. I'm fine with it if it has slight differences. Whereas like now I feel like publishing is like, no, you must have something that very clearly sets it apart from others. And I think that's kind of the thing about writing in a dead genre. And though with me, I was writing urban fantasy and I kind of knew urban fantasy was a little bit on the outs, but I also knew that I was writing a book about a family of Black witches and there were not a lot of those books. So there was space to come in. And I think we've also seen that with like LGBTQ, like people like there was space because those books weren't there when that boom was there to begin with. And so you're slotting yourself into that space or you're doing like way different things with it. Like, who's it? Jay Kristoff's doing like the scary vampire and like how in that boom, how many scary vampires were there? Not that many. And so it's a different sort of push, but also he's like Jay Kristoff and he's written a bunch of books and like that sort of thing. Like you can do, when you've written a bunch of books and you're successful, you can kind of do what you like.
I'll just interject because this question, like eternal question, superheroes are always dead, but dead doesn't mean dead. But both of these examples are established authors. Vicious is an adult novel, so it's completely irrelevant to YA, and Renegades is by a New York Times best-selling author. She was allowed to write that book because she had sold probably, I wouldn't be shocked if Cinder sold over 100,000 copies. Like would not be surprised at all. But that series underperformed relative to the previous one because there was actually a superhero YA that recently sold. There was a small handful last year that got no marketing support. So like it's just as dead as it always was. Every year or so, one might get through. And the question is it from a debut? Is it from someone established? And how are they refreshing it? But when I see people writing superhero fiction for YA specifically, it's basically like Marvel or it's like DC. It's just not going to happen. It's too like everything else. And they do licensed books. And in fact, there are some licensed books from Marvel that I know of that aren't even happening anymore because the trend has cooled. So like when even licensed IP isn't doing them, it's just it means you have to do something very, 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 very special to even have a shot of breaking out. But for many agents, it's an auto reject. That has not changed. Will not change. Also will not change for time travel. It's the same thing. It's like a once in a blue moon thing. And I encourage those writing them to try to be the unicorn. Try it. It's worth trying. But don't try for like 8 years on it. Like try it. Write a book. Try it for a year or two. See if it works. But if it doesn't, you have to move on. That's my harsh advice. I have literally written a time travel book and a superhero book. Didn't work. It's fine. I'm fine. Yeah. When I see them sell, I'm excited. But then when I see them get zero marketing support, I'm not surprised. There were literally 2 last year that I promise you haven't heard of. One by someone pretty well known that probably sold just because the author was well known, which is very good.
Is that the Julie Murphy one?
Yes. But there was another one that looked really cute. But I noticed that the publisher didn't do anything with it. So I was sad about that. Because that's the thing, like they sell, and this is good. It's good that they sell. But how are they going to find an audience if the publishers don't market their sci-fi? I will die on this hill. Yes. Sorry. I'm fine. It's the publishers. They don't know how to market it. So, and actually, dystopia, same thing. I actually think dystopia will come back. I don't think they're going to call it that. It's just like calling urban fantasy contemporary fantasy. You got to find a real smart way to pitch that. That's all. Pitching.
Speculative.
Because I kind of have been having a hankering for dystopia a bit recently. I've been thinking about some of the Golden Age books, and I want to happen what's been happening with witches and vampires. I would love it if that happened to dystopia, meaning if writers would figure out how to write those tropes in a fresh, current market upper YA way. That makes sense. Would be
so good. I was like, yeah, Moon isn't the only one that can write dystopia. Let some other people get in there.
But like
great.
if
I love
you're
it.
writing something that's gonna feel too much like 2010 era dystopia, I think it's still gonna be a no, because publishing doesn't want to publish a book that feels dated. That's always the trick with paranormal as well. So read. Need to scan.
Mm-hmm. Sad dystopia.
Oh, I hate it when the chat jumps and it's like, I lost my place. Here, I'll throw this one up just so, because I think this one is easy to jump in on while I continue to scroll the chat. Completing work within 6 months, speed or discipline, how much you have to push yourself to write when you're not feeling it. And I can say personally, I just trained myself to do it. Like once you know that you have a real deadline and like there's a contract, you figure it out. That said, it still took me 9 months to write my second book, but 4 months of that was forcing myself to write. And I vlogged it. It wasn't fun at all.
That's the easiest question. Discipline all the time, and it's a job.
Yeah.
And you have to treat it like one, because, do I pick up embroidery like I'm going to get paid for it? No. And if I treated writing like that, like a creative hobby, then it wouldn't have enough incentive to push. You know what I'm saying? So especially when you're trying to like break into the market, like you have to treat it that way, because if you do break in, that is a job now. And so you have to go ahead and practice that mindset even before you get there. And that's me talking as a person who's been published in small time ways, but is pre-query. These two, they already know. So they can confirm that. But I've been training myself into like a employment mindset with the writing before I get there, because I don't want to be taken by surprise. I've heard a lot of stories of writers who like just took a really long time to write their book. Like they took a decade to write it, and then they go and they're on deadline and they completely flop, and they are just in a panic and they have no idea how to even cope with the expectation. So it's better to know the expectation first before you even decide to pursue it. You know what I'm saying?
Lizelle, I don't know your experience. I assume it's similar to mine. I mean, you sold a 2-book deal as well. Like,
yeah,
your publisher
been a mix of both for me, to be honest. Because like I don't like when people are like, yeah, like write every day for an extended period of time. Like I can't do that, and that's why I write faster. So I do my first drafts fast. And so then I get the book done, and then I can take like a longer break, and then I can take more time to edit. But that was a really good skill for me because it helps pull stress off myself. So like I wrote this sequel in like 45 days in like March/April of 2020.
God, I wish I could write that fast. I can't. I
sat on it for many months.
I'm working there. I'm like, I would love to train myself. 3 months. I feel like more than 3 months to draft is just too much for me. So I'm like trying to train myself into that time frame, and I'd be happy with that.
Because I know I take more time to revise also, and so it gives me some more time for myself and as a buffer, because I knew I had a deadline coming up. I didn't know what it was yet, but I was like panicked drafting that time and how much time I would need to revise. So I was like, I need to draft this faster and then edit and so on. But I like kind of treat all of my projects like that. Like I focus as much as I can on each project, and I switch them around in terms. So I draft one, and then I'm letting it sit. And then while I'm letting it sit, I take a little break, and then I start on something else. And then it sat long enough. Okay, now I can do like a revision. And then when I'm done that, okay, take a break for like 2 weeks now and like move on to something else, so that I'm like, but that was like a mindset I had when I was querying as well, to be constantly moving on different projects so that I never had eggs in one basket, because I did that. My second book, which is a problematic book anyway, but I worked on that for 2 years, and then it was so devastating when it didn't work out, versus like Blood Like Magic, when I was creating that, I was already onto the next book. Like I was already doing a space opera. And so I already had something. And I kind of think that's been really helpful because now that I'm on deadlines, I'm like, okay, I'm working on my sequel, but I'm also working on this book because I would like to sell that book during this year. So I have a book for the next year with the goal of trying to have one book a year and constantly cycling while also giving myself those breaks. So like bit of both, bit of speed, but a lot of discipline.
Yeah. Well, and this is why like I know people get high key mad at me about my whole stance on writer's block. And the reason I have that is it's not that you can't get blocked. We all get blocked. But when you are a professional, it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. If you have a deadline, you can maybe be blocked for a day, but like maybe 2, maybe a weekend. But like there's no choice. You are writing a book. And the only people who get that grace, if you're not famous, you might get that grace, but then your publisher is probably going to forget about you. Like if you take 8 million years between books, if you make them really mad, they will say that you violated the terms of your contract, which is not good. But mostly it might be like, oh, then we'll just kind of like, you're not going to get a big push on the book when it finally comes out because like they lose excitement. But more often than not, you have to be famous or a literary writer to get more than 9 months to a year grace time to write, but it's usually less than 9 months to write on deadline.
And it makes it difficult. Like when your option comes up, you know, if you haven't been able to meet deadlines consistently, like, are they going to want to sign you on another book? Or are you now going to have to go on wide sub with your option because your publisher is like, we don't want to deal with this again.
They have to trust that you can hit your deadlines, that they can meet publishing schedules. It's not fun.
And you have to prepare for writer's block before it happens. Time. Yeah. Like you in that moment of your surge of your inspiration, like it's all air quotes, it's like none of it's real to me. But like at the surge of your inspiration, like prepare for the writer's block then when you have all the ideas and plan out, you know, if I come to a block in this part of the story. Also staying organized and outlining a little bit. I know there are pantsers out there, but there is that when you know what's happening, like Alexa, she knows her ending finally this time. She knows her ending. So it's like
my literal ending. I always know my third act set piece, like in fairness. Like even with the Ivies, I knew what it was, but the actual ending, like the final scenes, which I ended up rewriting twice anyway, when I got there, I was like, sure. What are they doing? I don't know, which maybe why I rewrote it. But
if you find mechanisms that get you out of kind of like creative stagnation, just go ahead and prepare some of that for like, okay, in the future, I know I'm probably going to hit a block. So here's some questions to ask myself, maybe play around with and kind of work yourself out of it. But prepare.
Just a quickie. No, 4 weeks is way too soon, especially in a pandemic. We're still in it. 3 months was the standard before COVID. And I would you could still check in after 3 months on a full manuscript, but you might even want to give them a little more time given the holidays and the election and the attempted coup and all that super fun stuff. And I know it hurts. I know it's painful. It sucks. Waiting is the literal worst. I'm so sorry. But yeah, 3 months is standard and remains standard. But I'd say you might even wait till the 4-month mark, maybe, depending. Also depends on the agent. Check their query tracker, see where they are in their queue. Are they a fast reader? Are they a slow reader? Etc. So that's my advice. Just had to throw that up there. Because if you nudge after a month, that agent will remember and probably not in a nice way. Because it's just too soon. Too soon. Okay. Especially because January is bonkers for a lot of agents. It's when they usually do a lot of client work in January. It's a famous month for going on sub. So they're probably just really swamped with client work. There was some other ones they've gone, but I remember the general questions. I'm sorry not to put them on the screen for people. We got 2 different ones. One was how did you know you wanted to write YA? Like, why do you want to write YA? And another one was, how do you do YA voice? Like, isn't it easier to write adult voice? I find those very interesting questions because I do think about these all the time, mostly because I think about how I would suck at middle grade voice.
Yeah. Oh, I was so bad at middle grade voice. Oh, I was so bad. I write in the voice that I read. So because I read predominantly YA, and the whole time I've been writing, I've still read predominantly YA. That's been the voice. And the other thing that I was reading was like literary adult. So when in university I was doing short fiction classes, I wrote literary adult short stories. One, because it was expected, but two, because otherwise that's what I was reading. So yeah, like for me, it's very much like what I read is going to be the voice I come out with. And I don't read much middle grade, which is why it wasn't shocking that I very much sucked at trying to do a middle grade voice.
Yeah.
And adult, I'm still working out. I'm trying, researching that more. I've tried in the past. I was like, what about this as adult? And my agent was like, this sounds very YA. And I was like, we'll try again.
That's hilarious because I don't write YA, but I can write adult and I can write middle grades. Like middle grade is such an easy voice for me to get into. And I think that's probably because it was the height of like my love of reading really spiked. So I consumed so much middle grade literature. And then like when I was a teen, I wasn't really as interested. Like I read all the big hitters, like all the big series and whatever, but I wasn't like really well versed in like I'm gonna oust myself here, but like I've never read a Cassandra Clare book.
Oh, you're fine.
Ever. I've never read Sarah J. Maas. I have never read any of those other, like after 10th, 11th grade, like I just went straight into reading like adult and was like, ooh, look at all this body horror. No, just kidding. It's like it was a love from the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, I'm similar to Lizelle. Like the genesis was certainly I was reading a ridiculous amount of YA, and I just found it so refreshing because I know I've said it a million times and everyone is sick of it, but it remains true. YA did not exist when I was a young adult. You were expected to jump from books for young people. It was just like young readers, and it went up to like what we now consider upper middle grade, or maybe lower YA that has been decimated and is gone now. But we didn't call it that, and it was only a handful of series. Most of them were packaged. I mean, I know that now. At the time, like, I didn't know what packaging was, but like all the big series were like, you know, Goosebumps, Fear Street, Sweet Valley High,
Nancy Drew.
Yeah. Well, so packaged. And
Pretty Little Liars wouldn't have been out yet.
Not for me, yeah. But that's one of them. And that kind of bridged the boom though. That was in like I consider it really starting, it's not literally Cassie Clare, but I associate Cassie Clare with that era, probably because I'm from Harry Potter fandom. Meaning like that book was huge when it came out, and it was part of a thing. But I just started devouring them, and there was just something so refreshing about the voice and like the romance. I loved all the romance and all the SFF stuff. Like I was just so excited because I found a lot of adult work less accessible in a certain way. Obviously, I'd been reading them for years, but you can only read so much John Grisham or James Patterson, and like those are very specific genres as well. And I was like, I can write like this. I didn't feel I could write like literary fiction, and I didn't want to write legal thrillers. And so that's part of it for me. But also I can unfortunately tap into my 17-year-old self very easily. It's you always have to be moderately concerned when you're good at writing YA, to be honest. It's like, oh, why is that such a flashpoint for me? But as long as you don't still act like that, it's fine. But you just tap into it. And that's the thing. I can tap into that, unfortunately, very well.
I hate her. 17-year-old Camille was...
I was a mess.
She was a prick. Oh, I hated her.
And then a lot of my characters, obviously, my characters are not all me. That's the thing. I'll take pieces of me and make it even worse. I'm like, what if I made really bad decisions? So like the Ivies is all by senior year I was very chill about college admissions because I'd gone abroad and I had changed as a person. I'm like, what if I hadn't changed and had the worst friends in the world and like was basically chilling with some sociopaths? Like they're not literally sociopaths, but like what if that version of me was basically tempted with,
what if you had come over to my friend group?
Right? Like, if you hang with us, you can go to the Ivy League and all your dreams will come true. What kind of person would I be? So she's not me, but she has like the worst parts of me. It's great. But like, that's where that came from. And unfortunately, I can tap into all that anxiety. I can tap in, like, she's got this guy she likes and she's a mess. That's autobiographical. Like, I was so hopeless. It's sad. I can do that easily, and I cannot do that. Like, I don't remember really what it feels like to be 11 or 12, other than abstractly. Like, I don't, and I admire people who can write middle grade, like, genuinely. God, and even younger, like 7 or 8. I'm like, how do you write for a 7 or 8-year-old? I don't know.
Have one.
It's a skill. Yeah, or have one, right?
And I struggle with middle grade. And, like, my memories from, like, 12 and, like, 13, like, is not the sort of middle grade that is called middle grade.
Yeah,
what
that's the thing.
Is really, like,
I was already like, yeah, there was pressure to date when I was that age, and the bodies changing. It was so unfortunate. Yeah. Oh God, I'm just flashing back.
Like, the kids that I was around, they were. It was weird. It was like a suburb, but like some stuff they did, I was like, when I was 16, I was still cringing about it, and I'm like, yeah, that's not middle grade as it is. Does not want that.
Someday I will, though, write. Maybe I will eventually write middle grade, because I have to somehow use the story of the time awkward little 12-year-old me forgot to wear a bra to school. Oh God. And we had gym class that day. It is like one of my most embarrassing. Oh God. Oh, so maybe I will write middle grade sometime. Like, I'm like, well, and I was like a chubby kid, and like I actually needed a bra. I was one of the only kids in the class who needed a bra, which was also embarrassing. By the way,
that's like chubby kid life. We're like,
it wasn't cute.
You're like, nobody else is wearing it though. No, but you need it.
But you have to. It was for Victoria's Secret too, because I thought it was so cool. Oh my God. Oh God, I'm so embarrassed. My life was a tragedy. I'd rather tap into 17 because 17.
I'm sorry.
Like, I know it's really awful. At 17, I didn't forget to wear a bra to school.
Oh.
Oh God. Oh, so but honestly, I think this is why we write books for kids. Like, you get to laugh at yourself. You get to explore like the worst parts of yourself at that age, or at least you should. I think YA is pretty boring when you can tell someone was like clearly attractive, happy, and they write books that I don't read. Because I was neither. I mean, I wasn't unhappy, but I was. Oh God, I have social. Someday I will also write a book about an exchange student, because I have stories. Oh, high school was weird. Anyway, moving on. We should probably sprint, but that's my answer.
Sorry.
You're good. In terms of figuring out if you should write YA, what do you read? What do you read, and what does your voice sound like? And if you really need to, give it to some people and ask them. But like, you either write in a good YA voice or you don't. So, yeah. And sadly, I can tap in. It's fine. We're fine.
Y'all are talented in ways I will never be.
I worry about myself sometimes. It's fine. We're fine. It's fine. Yeah. But like I said, if you're a YA writer and you're good at it, you should worry about yourself. And it's the act of being vaguely concerned that means that you're fine. If you don't question it, maybe your Arrested Development is really bad. That's all. Grown-ass adults should not act like teenagers.
True.
Fair.
True.
But they do.
I will say that I did recently read One of Us is Lying, and it was like, I was taken back to myself for the first time, and I was like, oh my God, I missed this. And then like the next one I picked up was Dead. It wasn't the same author. It was just like I was perusing the library, and the next one I picked up was Dead, and I was like, man, like I just I got this finger, and then I was like,
I'll say about One of Us is Lying though that they are all way too normal and attractive for me. Like meaning I couldn't relate to some of it. I was like, oh no, I was a much bigger train wreck.
Yeah, I was like, I like this, but I don't know these people.
No, exactly. I was like, oh, I love this beautiful person's life.
Where
I forget what her name is, but it's the one with the really shitty boyfriend. I was engaged in her storyline. I was like, get out, girl, get out. I was there. So that's why I read YA.
Yeah, I can't remember her name.
I forget her name and I feel terrible.
Club feeling.
Yeah, exactly. I theoretically have the most in common with Bronwyn, but as already stated, I gave up on that Ivy League stuff by senior year because I decided I just liked myself too much. Yeah. So I was like, chill out, girl. Chill out. It's fine. And then I wrote a book about people backstabbing each other to go to college, so it's fine.
Why not?
It's fine.
Oh, Addison.
Why do it when you can write it?
Addison.
She had a name. The only one I ever remember is Bronwyn because it's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
Bronwyn and Nate because shipping.
I also
like the guy, the bad boy. Was he Nate?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then
shocked I remember that.
It's coming back.
Oh, yeah.
I tried to remember the baseball player and I was like, Carl. Nope. C. Was it
I was just imagining Jed Nelson the whole time.
Yes.
It's like it's Jed Nelson. That's it.
Oh, someone asked a good question about names. Okay, we're gonna put a pin in this for after the sprint because I love talking about this. Okay. So now we're gonna sprint. We're gonna write. We're gonna do 20 minutes again because I say so. All right. Yes. I'm gonna put up the screen. That's not the screen I want. Sorry, it's this. Okay, hold on. I can internet. Okay.
There we go.
Ready, set, and go. Oops, yeah. We made it. I love the positive affirmation at the end, Camille.
Oh, thanks.
You did that. Yeah, you did.
Encouraging.
All right, I gotta count up what I did.
I finished annotating my chapter and rewarded myself with 10 minutes of reading.
That's nice.
I wrote about 380 words. That's pretty good for me.
That is good.
Hey.
I actually think, yeah, I've hit my word count for the day. I'm gonna keep going. I have a low minimum. It's actually very good. I only have to write 600 words a day, which is really not bad.
That's good.
The pressure off. But I've been trying to hit 1,000 any day I can, because that's much better, because I get 2 stars. Yeah. Star sticker motivation's real, y'all.
Stickers are motivating.
They really are.
I finished rewriting like half of the chapter. Didn't realize I was going to be rewriting it, but there we are.
I love those feelings. You're like, oh, this doesn't work. Okay.
Yeah, well, they were just like talking about a bunch of stuff, and I was like, oh, all of this is no longer relevant. I've changed a lot of this. And then I had to like pull in another character. He was off scene before, and then I was like, oh, you need to talk, and you need to talk a lot. So rewriting.
Probably me in a couple months with the chapter I'm literally writing right now. I have no clue what I'm doing, but I did it. This scene is at a fan con, and so I got to like lovingly describe shit I've seen at fan cons, because it's Thunder Hall. So yeah, write what you know, kids.
It's true. It's helpful.
We'll see how much of it stays in the book. I don't know. We're gonna try.
Stuff comes
So
out.
Character names. I love this question.
Yeah.
How do you guys come up with character names?
It's a bit of this.
Regionally.
Ah.
I write folk noir and like Southern Gothic, so we go for the Southern kind of names. Birdie is my favorite name of all time. I love the name Birdie and Nora. Like Nora is the prettiest name.
I always do like a mix of like, I'll do the baby name websites, but I also have to think really hard about the character and like what it is. If I want their name to say something, their name doesn't always need to say something. And then sometimes it's like regional stuff. Like in my debut, for me, it was like, okay, so you're a child of immigrants, but this is the future. So you are many generations past, but are your parents very traditional such that they would give you like a very traditional name, or are they like trying to Canadianize you, and so they want to give you a very like quote unquote Canadian name? Do your parents want to make up their own name? Are they going to have a family name for you? And like stuff like that. And then my main character's name I just ended up making up on the spot just cuz. And then like other characters, all sorts of things. Like one character in my horror, her name is Daisy, and her name is Daisy because I wanted her to have a delicate name that didn't fit her because her mom has like controlled a lot of her life, and even her like name and her whole identity that doesn't match is decided for her.
Wow. That's really clever.
No, I love that kind of stuff.
I actually have like a note in my phone specifically for names. So if I'm like reading or out, or even when I'm driving and I see like street names, I'm like, ooh, that's an interesting name. And I'll like put it in my notes. So I have like a list of names I like.
Smart, because it goes beyond like names of people, because you have to name all sorts of things. Like in mine, I've got like streets I have to give names. I had to name the town, the newspaper, the hotel where this convention is taking place. I had to name the convention. Naming a fandom is weird. I might change it later. I did the basic bitch option. It's not very creative, but how creative? I mean, some fandoms are creative. There's a fandom in this book. But naming names. So the scene I'm writing right now features a character who I invented a couple days ago. I needed a warm body to do something. And this is what I do all the time too. I came up with that warm body. I was like, well, I need them to talk to someone in the scene, whatever. Doesn't matter who it is. And now I'm working backwards to make them someone insignificant to the plot because like I've introduced them now. So they either will get cut later or I can make them important. So that's that. You don't always have to do that, but I am. But for that one, I just literally I was like, she needs a name. And I named her after like a friend of mine. I was just like, oh, I like their name. They're a nice person. I'll name them after this person. And they're not the killer, so that's fine. And I do that sometimes, but I have now had to apologize to 2 different friends because I like their names for making them murder victims by accident. The first one is my friend Emma. And I warned her, I was like, so look, if you ever read my book, I did not mean to name a murder victim after you. I like you as a person, I promise. This is not shade. And that's always like it really wasn't intentional, but like so for the Ivies, I do the baby name sites exactly. And it's my first like modern book, which is very exciting. And I was like, okay, how would the parents of these girls, these characters in my book, these students at a school, how would they name them? And I thought very carefully about socioeconomic background, the kind of people they were. So, and my agent actually helped me with this one. I gave my main mean girl, who I of course secretly adore, which is terrible. I gave her a very good mean girl name. But my agent's feedback after the first draft was, so like it was a name that fit her characterization. And my agent was like, first of all, that's way too common in YA. She was right. But she was also like, that name was really popular the year this character was born, and her parents would never. So I am not a rich person, if you couldn't already tell. And my main character is more from my background. And she's surrounded by rich people. And my agent went to prep school. And so she was like, look, I know people like this. They would never give their child a popular name because they are above that and they are ahead of that. And it actually really helps me because I was like, I knew that I couldn't give that character a name in the top 100 from the year of her birth. They would never.
Yeah. So I really want to tell you my main character's name, but I can't because it's essential to the plot twist.
Oh,
dang it. But it's a good one. I'll have to tell y'all privately.
But in my main character, I purposefully gave her a basic bitch name because she's a normal person. Her name's Olivia. Like, and I even have her make a Starbucks cup joke about how common her name is, and the barista still gets it wrong. I had fun with that. And I'm someone with an unusual name. Cannot relate. Like, literally cannot relate. But it was a choice. I wanted her to have that because part of her character is how desperately she wants to fit in and stand out. And she's got an ordinary name. I mean, a beautiful name. I actually really love the name Olivia. I'm kind of sad it's so popular. Otherwise, I would use it for a kid. Actually, a lot of my favorite
baby name. I don't care if it's popular.
I love that name. I love it. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful name, but it's so popular. So Emma, though, I named the character Emma. I was like, she got a popular name because it's a really pretty name. And then in the new one, I wanted my main character to have an unusual name, something a little old-fashioned, because I love old-fashioned names.
I love old-fashioned names.
But not too popular. But also, so I named her Cecilia, in part so that I could make a Simon and Garfunkel joke. I'm not kidding. I did. Oh, that's why that's her name. I love it though. Like it's also an unusual YA name, which I liked. Everyone, don't go naming your character Cecilia. I peed on it. I'm kidding.
I have to tell you something that's a little off topic, but as I was traveling this past couple weeks and I was in the airport, I thought about you as I passed all the bookstores. And I was like, I hope one day the Iris is at the airport.
I have not yet had a airport book, that's on my author bucket list. Oh, and you asked in chat, I am no way with child. I'm very single, but I plan on having a child in the next couple of years because we won't talk about age. It's fine. We're fine. But you know what? You either know you want kids or you don't at a certain point, and I do. So I will have children.
They're going to be the best behaved little things.
No, 100%. Like, I will accept nothing else. I was a ridiculously well-behaved child. So. In a good way. I was also.
I can hear you going inside voices.
Yeah, the main one that my mom did that I know I'm going to repeat. You're never angry. You're disappointed.
Are you disappointed? I need that one for Charlie.
And the thing that she would do too, that I will probably repeat, is because you get things that slip it, like it's just they're ingrained in you. Nothing was ever bad or wrong or no. Unacceptable.
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 Oh, I know that one.
Okay. I liked it because it's like there's a very respectful and specific way of shutting me down. Like that behavior is unacceptable. So that's what I would get for yelling. No, that is unacceptable. No. Unacceptable. My mom got migraines too. I was a quiet child and I never wore perfume. It's why I don't wear scents. And it's very weird to burn candles because I realized recently like that's probably why I never really got into candles before. Because my mom was prone to migraines. There were no scents in her house at all. And I was like, oh, that's so weird. I never thought of that.
My mom's signature is no. No.
And I love it.
No.
It's so interesting to me because I have a 3-year-old sister. So I'm watching my mom parent. And I'm like, interesting.
Jonathan was like, that's really sad. I'm like, what's sad? He's like, candles. I'm like, yeah, it's a little sad. But it's okay. Now I have like 50 of them. I'm living out my candle dreams just in time to have a cat with asthma. So I've had to be careful about the candles. I'm not positive it sets off the cat's asthma, but I have to be careful. I have a cat with asthma.
Man, that happens to me every time. Yeah. I took down my candle, and I always get this.
Everyone knows I did put it out during that last word sprint, but I have been burning frosted Moscow Mule for the majority of this stream. It's like a cocktail. It's so good. I have so many candle feelings. It's upsetting.
Oh my God.
Eva, I'm turning into Camille's mom. Yeah. You are my mother, Eva. That's my mom. No, Eva on Facebook, if you ever see her on Facebook, she's like got my mom energy going. For sure.
Oh, this is a random question, but I'm happy to answer it. If my kid wants to write books, I'd obviously encourage them. I was encouraged to write. So, yeah.
I'm like the person that low-key hopes my kid doesn't want to write books because I'm like, oh, what if they're not good? What do I say to you? How do I critique you with gentleness?
Yes. But my thing is, like, here's the thing. They will still be finishing school and going to college. You must always have a practical backup plan in this household. So that's how I was raised, and I plan on repeating that. I'm a big supporter of vocations and trades. If they want to take up something like that, but you will earn your own income because I'm not paying your rent. She says what I might, but I don't want to because that didn't happen for me. So, which sounds really horrible and bootstrappy, but no, like I really wanted to live on my own. I mean, with roommates. I wanted to have a job. I wanted to be an adult and spend my money on what I wanted. Oh God, it was so beautiful when I could finally be like, I'm going to a Harry Potter convention because it's my money. Yeah.
Do whatever you want.
Great. I love making money. But that's so horrible. I don't love loans or taxes. Yeah, but I love spending my money on what I want, like candles. I just buy candles now.
Buy whatever you want.
Someone asked if I had an accent.
Yes.
As much as I try to disguise it, yes. I live in Cajun Creole country down in the deep south, and I try the best I can to mask it, but it comes out sometimes. That's funny. I'm like, oh God. When someone's
We
like,
all-
do you have a Southern accent? I'm like,
we each have like a something,
Yeah.
because you're Canadian, and
But
it's not that bad. Like it slips.
oh
It's
no,
just-
and I would be fine with it anyway. The only thing I don't do is when I'm around Americans, I do try not to say A, because it's like your favorite thing to be like, you said it.
I know we do.
Hating
It's
it.
horrible. We're horrible people.
Go away.
Like, it doesn't work. And then you do that, and I'm like, it doesn't work like that. It has specific grammatical rules.
True. But when left to my worst devices, my Maryland comes out, and we basically sound the same. So on certain words, because like when I'm like really vibing, like I'm just gonna say like house and couch, because that is how my people speak. And I didn't accept this about myself until I started making YouTube videos, and I had to listen to myself, and I was like, I have a Maryland accent, but only sometimes. It's interesting.
Huh.
So
Yeah.
All
and
my
I-
early videos that are privated now, unintelligible. I mean, unintelligible. I was like, oh my God. I did not realize just how bad the slur had gotten in. Like, just there's no such thing as consonants. You just drop them. There's nothing but vowels. And you draw them out forever. Yeah.
I only hear obvious accents. And I remember I was
Yeah.
so mad the first time I went to New York and like talked to people, and I was like, you sound like me. You sound exactly like me. There is no difference. I was like, you've been making fun of us, and you sound the same. And it's funny because linguistically, because of Canadian raising and like geographical, people that are in New York that are near the border do sound like us. But it's funny because they're like, yeah, what you're doing is different. I'm like, it's not. You were doing a very similar thing. But
this is a funny comment that I've been in California for a while, and that has affected how I speak. Because that's the thing, like the Maryland will slide in, but I have the melodic tone of a Californian now. It's like bled into my life. But I'm highly susceptible to accents personally. When I lived in Georgia, I would drawl. And when I'm not in Georgia, I don't draw. But you send me to the South, and it comes out.
You were in Georgia?
Yeah, I went to middle school and high school in Georgia. So I can do like a full on, like I can just like really get into it. It just starts happening. That's not but happening. It's like Georgia's a little soft, but it's not a good thing that I will slide into accents, but it's why I always semi-forgive. It's still terrible. You know those awful Americans who move to the UK and they sound like Madonna and they do that like fake British thing? I actually understand it. It's still terrible and we should not do it, but I am also prone to that kind of like sinking into a local accent thing. So if I sound funny, that's why. But it's good for speaking foreign language. My German's decent. It's not great, but I can like speak with a dialect because like once I hear something enough, I can yeah.
There are two words that I just can't say, like want and won't. Want and won't always come out won't. Like want sounds like won't and won't sounds like want. Like I won't do that. I won't do that. I won't do that.
I love regional differences.
Someone
Sorry,
real quick is talking about West Coast and Ontario. So people in Canada do sound different. People in the West Coast do sound different. And if you want to hear what Americans think is like Canadian accent, go to the East Coast because that's where you hear that. If you want to hear some boop as close to it as you'll get, because no one truly says it, you got to go to Newfoundland. That's where you get that. You don't get that from Ontario.
The accent there is bonkers. Like
it's different.
I think it was the Dear Zachary documentary. I think that's where part of it was in Canada, and like you're like, it's very strong.
Yeah. That's where it is.
Okay.
Someone also asked about writing accents.
Let's talk about it briefly, and then we can sprint. Why? and let's say it's our final sprint. This next one can be our final sprint. And in the chat, put what you prefer. Do you want 15? You want 20 again? Should we go 25 or 30? Put it in while we talk about writing accents.
I'm interested in, Camille, if you write accents.
Hell yeah. Obviously, you can't. It's like you would neglect the whole voice if you didn't put it there, because it's for me, the country and like rural folk, they're everywhere, you know, and it's kind of the same no matter where you go. As long as you're in the heartland, there's gonna be like that drawl, and it's what sets them apart. Because I write a lot about rural people, and because their culture just fascinates me, because they just come up with it on their own. Like they just go by instinct, what feels right, and that's kind of what governs them. And that's a tangent for another day. But what sets them apart is really how they speak, you know, and how they interact in that kind of clip slang. And they know exactly what they're talking about, you know, but they have just certain phrases. And so when I write, obviously like my prose part is clear, but it's just the word choice that kind of, that denotes the dialect and like the region and where you are. But like when you're like the dialogue, I'm not as strict on like the grammatically correct, I guess, you know. It's almost like it's the way you arrange the sentence more than it is how you spell it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So that's the easiest way to write accent for me. Like if you switch a couple words and make one kind of grammatically incorrect, but it's all written spelling correct, you can still get the same message across. But it's just so much fun to write. Oh my God, it's so fun.
I'm always like so fascinated by people that like can like write accents and like write in dialect, and like probably because I just finished Concrete Rose and like the AAV and that the African American vernacular English, and like how much that contributes to the voice. And I like cannot. I will write so and so has a Caribbean accent, and then
and then never mention again. The best book, if you want to study how to do dialect well and make it work, oh gosh, Winter's Bone by Daniel Woodrell is what like top 5 favorite books of all time. I have to take a break from reading like Southern Gothic folk noir a lot of times, because I'll start forgetting what the strunk rules actually are. But that book, that book is so fantastic. Like the voice bleeds through the whole book, and it's so atmospheric. Like the voice almost contributes to the atmosphere as well, and just knowing where you are. So good. I highly recommend to everyone. Also, The Familiar Dark, which was recommended to me by Lindsay Puckett. That was a fantastic one for voice, and it's a good thriller. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't write accents. The closest I've come is in The Stars We Steal. I described clipped vowels, which was the closest I got to talking about a Swedish person. So just to like, yeah, sure, clipped vowels. Yeah. I might have, or maybe, did I use that for Swedes or Germans? Anyway, yeah, I don't write accents. Though when I'm writing, this is like a me thing, if I'm writing a German speaking English, which doesn't happen that often, to be fair, I will invert some of the sentence structure just a tick. There's a very specific way that Germans speak English. So I'm just used to it. I adore it. But that's all I got.
I'm so interested.
Okay.
Isn't it linguistics background? I'm just interested.
So we're very split in the chat. There was a lot of 20s, a lot of 25s, and a couple of 30s. So I think we should split the difference and do 25. It's like a safe middle. And that'll take us to the end of the hour, and then we can wrap up. I'm terrified. This is gonna be great. And
they're trying to kill me.
The only one that I can find that like popped up is your Cozy Autumn one, Camille.
What's that? I'm sorry, what?
Cozy Autumn Timer. Sorry, my it played an ad when I opened it. Charlotte Tilbury, so you know what is targeted to me. Same thing. I bought your stuff, girl. You can stop advertising to me.
I'm sorry. I like it. I got my new. The ads are new for me. I'm like,
no,
let's see
like,
it. Let's see what happens.
YouTube serves me the same like 5 ads over and over again because it's
I
clearly
started getting
remarketing.
Paula's Choice ads thanks to you. Thank you so much. After I clicked your links to go whatever, which I got all my Ole Regenerist and all that, which I won't start you on that discussion, but holy hell, girl, I ain't got not one crow's foot left.
Skincare, man. I love it.
Just saying.
Yeah. Oh, yay. I just like vindication from people who understand German. Yeah, I did. So like, this isn't an accent thing. I have a joke about formal in German, because in German, you only duzt a person, which is using like the really comfortable casual you when you know them, and otherwise you have to z them, like it's formal, like you z people you don't know, and so she z's her ex as to like be a bitch to him. She's like, you don't get the casual form of you. I just the little things. Now you know how to shade a German. You don't duzt them if you know them, or like, but you can literally, you're considered very rude if you use the do form with like an adult or a teacher or whatnot. Language is fun. All right. Okay. Oh, and someone just asked this. This is the first write with me I have ever done, but I'll do more because I need to finish this book.
Lizelle, you do them regularly, don't you?
Yeah.
Me? Oh no.
You do sometimes.
I used to, but I don't do
other people's. I realize that I really hate hosting because I don't like the responsibility. But I love hopping on to people's.
Same.
Yeah, if you guys like this, I can do more. It's always going to be weekends for me, probably, because that's when I really get a lot of my word count in. But yeah, and the reason is I actually technically have not drafted a book, like seriously drafted, since I started live streaming, because I didn't really start live streaming until the pandemic. Like I had like once or twice before, but like now I'm actually comfortable with it. Live streaming is intimidating, y'all. It really is. But like, I'm in a groove. Oh, and someone asked earlier about first page critiques. I'm probably going to do a query critique next. Is probably the next like of that.
Yeah, series. I was waiting around in November for you to open up, and you never did. And I was like,
I got way too busy.
Yeah, I understand. I'm waiting. I like made a deadline. I was like, you need to have your query letter drafted by the time November.
Those lives actually take work. Like I actually have to plan for them and then prep and like I'm like, oh, work. Yeah, I'm fine. I have work ethic. It's fine. Okay, we're gonna sprint. All right, let's do the thing. Hold on, share screen. All right, let's do this. Yay. How did we do? The final sprint.
Finished editing my chapter. I have to do 2 a day, and I did both of them. So yay, I don't have to do more work after the stream.
I wrote 332 words, and I passed 1,000 for the day.
Good job.
And I think I made it through the bog, the scene bog, because I actually think I know what's next, and it's actually an active investigation beat.
Yay!
I might still have to rewrite this, but that is literally a later problem.
Yeah.
You know, future Alexa is going to have to deal with it. Sorry, I said my name. Sorry. People talking about their echo. I actually had to turn mine off, like, so it doesn't actively listen anymore, because I haven't been able to film my intros to my videos recently. It's gotten more sensitive, so I'm like, shut up, stop listening to me. I have to work.
Oh god.
Oh, sorry, Yanni. Oh, I also managed to give my cat his medicine, so.
Oh yay, that's good.
It's pilling. It's not fun pilling a cat who doesn't want to be pilled. But he has outsmarted me at every turn. Oh, did I put my mic back on? Thank you. You always have to ask me because it's far away when I write. Sorry. If you didn't catch that, I gave my cat his medication, which involves burritoing him in a towel and forcing his mouth open and shoving a pill in. Super fun.
Yeah.
Or he'll die. So
gotta happen.
He's a senior cat, so he requires daily medication. Okay. Ooh. Boarding school books. Yeah, let's just jump into this because it popped up. And we can do a couple closing questions, final thoughts before we wrap up for the day. But boarding school. Okay, is it a thriller? Not that strictly matters, but like those are my recs. So definitely pick up Friends Like People Like Us by Dana Mella. That's a good one from a few years ago. It's lower YA, but I still really enjoyed it. It's a little older, so like don't read it and think I can write a book like this. But the Prep School Confidential series by Kara Taylor is Kara Thomas's first book series. She changed her name in between. Yeah. They are definitely like, they sit like in that sweet spot of like books, like the Gallagher Girls books, like that would have been hot in like 2013, 2014. So it came on the end of a trend, but they're delightful fun. The boarding school feels are great. I read all 3 of them. The first 2 are especially good. When mine comes out, you can read mine. I know that's literally not helpful. Try to think of what else I read for boarding school. Do y'all read that trope?
Mm-hmm. My favorite, I don't think it was a boarding school, I think it was a prep school, but the Blue Blood series by Melissa De La Cruz, I really enjoyed, especially like specifically the school aspect in that. And then there is an excellent kind of boarding school type, like weird school environment in Ruined by Paula Morris, which is a New Orleans author. And it's set in New Orleans, and, you know, their schools are very private there, and it had the coolest. I read it in one sitting. It was really good.
There's one by Tana French that I remember reading, but I forget which one it was because I burned through like all the In the Woods books, and they just like blend now. And I'm like, was it Secret Place or was it one of those?
I also thought it's on my TBR, and like it's on my like very soon TBR. Like I've been wanting to read it. I have a copy. They Wish They Were Us. That came out last summer. That's a prep school book. So I'm looking forward to reading that. And then honestly, a bunch of them are coming out soon. It's just kind of like, you know, they're just, mine is the first in 2021 that's really being published. And then there's several more coming out over the summer, which, you know, is late. Yeah. So in terms of tips, my big thing was, I used for shorthand my college experiences since I did not go to boarding school. I kind of drew a bit from that and that experience. So if you have experienced, if you've gone to college and lived on campus, depending on the school, you might be able to mine that. And then I read other books. When I was done, I actually interviewed someone who went to Exeter, which was very helpful, mostly to confirm like some of the stuff I had was right. I ran a couple things by them and like got some corrections on like, well, actually, at least at our school, it was like this. And I was able to like make some tweaks to it. And then, but like before I wrote, I browsed boarding school websites like a creep. Not a teenager, not a parent, but I was on all those sites. I was looking through their activities. By the way, the names conversation, and that's another way I got a feel for names of kids going to boarding school right now. I looked at sports rosters and I looked at naming trends. I'm creepy. It's fine. But yeah, I creeped on a lot. I know. I'm so creepy.
The neighborhood watch program is going to be on your tail.
Honestly, very lucky that like I'm not. Yeah, I'm relatively non-threatening, and clearly the FBI knows that. Anyway, the things we look up as writers. So that helped me a lot though. Oh gosh, the most painful deep dive was when I realized it was after I wrote the book, do not recommend. I wasn't sure if my scheduling was correct because how class actually works varies boarding school to boarding school, but it's also a little bit different from public school usually. And I was like, did I F up my book? And I was able to find enough boarding schools that were similar where I was like, oh, I don't have to rewrite my book. That's good. But I genuinely recommend looking at their schedules. Some of them are like, I had trouble understanding Exeter's, honestly. It was like more complicated than college. But like, it's helpful to know, like they operate a little differently than regular schools. And so be a creep. And I read course catalogs. Like, I'm like, that's what I recommend. But also ultimately you're making up a school and you do get to take creative license, which I used. So that's my advice. God, I love boarding schools. Yay.
Also, I have just a tidbit because I came out of journalism. Like I worked in journalism for a really long time. You can call people. Let me tell you something.
Yeah, that's true.
You can research people, professors at universities all over the world. You can pick up the phone, you can call them, and you can ask them questions specific to your story. And like 95% of the time, they are more than happy to talk to you.
I need to talk to people, Camille.
Why not? I talk to people and I'm an introvert.
This is why in college I decided I wanted to be a film critic and not a reporter because my least favorite part of my reporting classes was talking to strangers, and I would do everything in my power to avoid it. Like I got
reprimanded because I wrote an article and I quoted someone's, like I cited my source and I found a study, and then the guy who had made the quote called my newspaper and said, why didn't you just call me for a fresh quote? And I was like, I will never not ever call someone ever again. Because people have like settings on their internet, like when their name pops up somewhere on the internet, it pings them and they're like, why are they writing about me over there? That was scary.
Yeah. Honestly, my ultimate
contact anyone.
Yeah, my conclusion in J school pretty early on was I was not cut out to do the more extroverted side of journalism, and I just steered my aspirations in a better direction.
I did radio for 5 years. Did you know that?
Wow.
Radio.
Yeah,
I was a DJ.
Yeah, no, I made it in magazine journalism and with a focus on criticism. So. I was
smart.
Honestly, I think that's why I gave into the urge to write book reviews, which I know is a really like I'm on shaky ground, but I walk that line very carefully.
Mm-hmm.
It's because
that's a good question. That's something I've been wanting to explore is, can authors give honest book reviews? Can you really?
Sometimes. God, I love criticism though. Like I really love media criticism. That is a good question. I think yes and no. Nonfiction, I don't like. I feel pretty comfortable, honestly, reviewing nonfiction. Though, if you review, you do have to be careful. I've had multiple of the authors I've reviewed nicely. I wasn't saying anything bad about them. I like their books. Contact me. So apparently, people who write nonfiction have not gotten the memo. And I actually didn't mind it. It was really lovely to hear from them.
We don't talk to each other, sweetheart.
It was lovely, but that was like my kind of lesson. Like, in the nonfiction space, they don't know that they shouldn't. But it was lovely. Like the author, it was a really good book. One of my favorite books last year about a fire in Rhode Island, and it was a journalist. And he read my review and he said something nice about it. I was like, oh, I really liked your book. So that was good. It's good that, but it did give me pause where I was like, oh.
Right. I feel like it's bad taste probably if you go and review like a peer in your own genre and age category and you're like, this book's sucking. And they're like,
I'm very careful with YA and with thrillers specifically. Adult thrillers are so hard though because I love reviewing them, but also I almost never hate anything. That's if I really hated something, I wouldn't review it.
Please roast my book. Roast my book. I would give anything to see your roast on my Goodreads, like under my book.
I try not to. But that's also just carefully choosing what I read. I try not to read things I don't think I'm gonna like. And I'm also really easy to please, relatively speaking. Like, you give me a good time, especially in a thriller, I'm good. Like, I don't even care if I mess the twist if you entertain me along the way.
Right.
Like, because it's not fair to them that I am, like, so used to tropes that I can make good guesses sometimes. That's not the author's fault. And I hope people will give me the same grace as long as I reasonably executed it decently.
Right.
But I don't know. I love it. But YA is a whole other can of worms.
I just only talk about like the books that I really, really liked, and that's kind of it. Goodreads, I've begun the peel myself away from Goodreads. I now use Notion exclusively to track all my books. I only use Goodreads to like add want to read.
I love Notion.
Yeah.
Notion is such a fantastic tool. Like, I literally have it bookmarked in my bar. Like, I love it. That's so cool.
But yeah, I do that. And it's just to like, it just felt like it would avoid much awkwardness. Like, especially like with how small the YA community is, and like, and quite honestly, like, I know some people are petty as hell, and I'm like, I don't care enough that people know my feelings to deal with that.
Yeah, and I've definitely like, I've been on both sides of it. Obviously, like, you get that. I do want to say, so I read my reviews. Have you been looking at Goodreads, Lizelle?
I accidentally. Nobody was supposed to have my book, and still is not really supposed to yet. But there was like it wasn't a review; it was just a rating, and I was like, okay, no, must distance myself.
Crazy.
And it wasn't that it was bad; it was 4 stars, and I was like, oh, that's like pretty legit. But I was like, I don't need to see any of that.
Yeah, there's like some people on Goodreads, I don't like it at all, but they do. They actually will star rate books before they read them as like a system for themselves of how excited they are about a book, which makes zero sense to me.
Yeah,
but it'll mean
weirdly, like, they had progress trackers that making status updates for, so it seems like they were reading. I think it's just like something happened, publisher people know other people. I think someone's relative got the book and read it and then rated it on Goodreads, even though technically no one had copies at this time except for blurbers.
Anytime your publisher or your agent sends it out for foreign consideration, I've definitely gotten reviews from people who are clearly reading for foreign publishers. Those are some of the early ones that you'll get, and it's interesting, and it's like you have to like take deep breaths, like remind yourself. But I read until I can't. And there's always a cutoff point. It's usually 1 to 2 weeks after my book comes out when I'm like, enough. I've seen the critical consensus, including the 1 stars. I don't need to read more of any kind. So like I haven't looked at like The Stars We Steal. I haven't even looked at my Goodreads page since 2 weeks after that book came out.
Yeah.
Same with Burning Burning.
I know I will never look because I know I'll thought cycle and I can't get into that. So
I feel like I would probably like designate a person and be like, I need you to read this and give me a summary. Like, give me the polite version of what they said the problem is.
Yeah. But like with the Ivies, I'm reading all the early reviews. I cannot resist because I want to know if it's working, and like knock on wood, early feedback is, it's not feedback, but you know, an early response is what I wanted. I had one person say that like they loved the ending, and I'm so worried about the ending. And another person said they didn't like it. So like we're ready to even split now. But like because I'm so curious, and like I got like, and I'm curious like who guesses the killer versus who doesn't, and that's also an even spread, and that's what reviews always are. Like for every person who hates it, someone's gonna love it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I figured I'd just judge by feeling of consensus. So like, you know, if I meet people after the book comes out and no one wants to tell me they love the book, then probably things didn't go well. You know, there's not a lot of buzz. If suddenly I feel like marketing is not as good on the next one, then I will know in my head, things didn't go well for you. And that's how I judge. Because
it's so hard because how much can you
so
like
many factors. It's not a good system, but it is the system I've chosen.
Especially the Goodreads critical consensus. Sometimes that you can't let it get to you, because so what kills me is the ratio. The Goodreads ratio is like the bane of my existence, and if you base it on that, people appear to like my debut way better than my second book. But I know in my heart of hearts that my second book is better than my debut. And I keep that close to me. And I know it's true. And it doesn't matter if the Goodreads ratio says otherwise. So like, meaning some truths you got to hold for yourself, which is like how much you are proud of something and how you feel about it matters. And so like, just like for the record, I legit think that The Stars We Steal is way better than my debut, but I know that fewer people are going to read it, and it'll be less to some people's taste because I didn't even try to make it a sci-fi. Let's be real, with some small exceptions. It's a romance. I wanted to write a romance, and I wrote what I wanted. And I think Ivy's is even better. Haha. So I hope you'll agree, but if they don't, that's fine too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta know yourself.
Oh, here, not to give you guys a horrific preview. Do people ever email you or YouTube comment what they think? Yeah. Not YouTube, not as often. I had one person do it once and I responded, and I know not everyone agreed with me responding, but no regrets. It was my space. I was allowed to respond and say like, it's cool that you thought my pacing sucked, but you really didn't need to tell me that on my channel. Like, cool, bro. Cool story, bro.
There's a place for that.
I don't get negative stuff over email, but I get a lot of people who will like email me, in good ways too. I've gotten some lovely DMs that are just like nice. Thank you. I love nice DMs. Yeah, it's not horrible, but people will reach out. The worst one though, the biggest culprit, I have 100% been tagged in negative reviews on Instagram repeatedly. It almost never happens on Twitter, but it happens on Instagram all the time. Instagram is not your friend. It's the worst. And so what kills me too is when it's a gorgeous photo and then a shitty review. And I'm like, I can't even like your beautiful photo because then you said it was shallow and you didn't like it.
No.
And you tagged me. It's the tag. I'm like, just don't tag me.
Yeah.
You are allowed. Just don't tag me. I'm glad you are expressing your honest opinion on the internet about my work. Just don't tag me. Because like some days I'm fine, but some days it's a real bummer. And some days it's like, if I'm actively drafting, I don't want to write that day because I'm like, I'm garbage. and then you get over it, hopefully. But some days you don't.
Yeah.
Self-plug. My release date for the Ivies is May 25th, 2021. Liselle, I think you already plugged, but plug yourself again because you're releasing really soon.
After you, I'm June 15th, 2021.
I think you were before me.
I don't know.
What is time?
Yeah.
I don't understand anything. It's fun. Okay.
Notion is an app. It's a organizational app.
Okay, so just gotta say, like, Instagram, I don't like literally mean like the hashtag. That's fine. I mean, they literally @tag me. That's the problem. No, I'm like,
I think on Instagram, they do it because they want people to be able to like tap and find the author super easily, because people are lazy on social, and they'll probably all go in the comments and be like, who is this author? How can I find them? Even though they know how to search on Instagram, because they want to just click your tag. So I think that's why people on Instagram will add the tag anyway, even though they know you're alerting them, so that they don't have to deal with people being like, who is this author and how do I find this author? Because people on social, as someone that worked in social media for 3 years, people on social like act like they don't know how to do anything for themselves, and like they can't type your name into a search bar. They must just be able to click the tag.
Well, here's the
and
thing.
I think that's what happens more often on Instagram than Twitter, because Twitter is a whole nother ball game.
The thing is that I have a pretty healthy attitude, honestly. Like, it's only happened once that I was tagged in something that actually like meant that I hated myself for like 24 hours and didn't want to write. Like, I think it was last year. I don't know, but normally I'm fine, but I do know authors, it would literally put them on the floor. And so like I'm just always like, I may be able to handle it, but someone else can't. And I'm like, could we just please create a culture on Instagram of not tagging authors in negative reviews? I'm begging you. I know people are lazy, but please. Yeah, I'm fine.
It's a pains.
I'm fine. Well, it's been over 3 hours, but it's been productive hours, because unlike most of my live streams that go really long, we did something. Thank you for joining me. I definitely want to do it again, because this was good. So yeah. Work. So let's wrap it up. Links are down below in the description to everyone's channel. Everyone, good luck with your writing. We'll do this again. Yeah. Happy Sunday. Happy writing. Woo. Okay.
Bye.